I'm just kind of ready for the next chapter and a new challenge in my life. But I think the reason I decided to announce it when I did was just to have that closure.
When Caitlin Clark, the brightest flame of the WNBA, walked onto the court that night, fans expected magic, not mayhem. But in a heartbeat, what should have been another breathtaking performance twisted into a nightmare no one could have imagined. Out of nowhere, an object cut through the air and smashed into her face, shattering the roar of the crowd into silence. Shock, fear, disbelief. The arena froze, but what followed was far more than chaos. It was the brutal end of a career that had rewritten women's basketball forever. How did it reach this point? Let's uncover the incident that rattled the sport to its very core. What began as a fast, fiery showdown turned into a spectacle of horror. The Indiana Fever were locked in a high-voltage clash. Every move cheered like thunder. Caitlin, the heartbeat of the league, was running the floor with her usual grace, precision, and power. But then, in one cruel instant, the energy flipped. Something launched from the stands, hurtling like a weapon, slamming directly into Clark. Gasps echoed, cameras snapped, and the stadium, once deafening, fell into a graveyard hush. Never before had basketball seen a star of this magnitude suddenly so fragile, so exposed before thousands of fans and millions glued to their screens. Her teammates sprinted to her side. Coaches waved for help. The clock stopped. The floor, once alive with motion and cheers, became a stage of urgency, fear, and raw humanity. Outside, the internet exploded. Within minutes, clips flooded social media, trending worldwide, sparking outrage, disbelief, and an avalanche of hashtags demanding accountability. Newsrooms scrambled. Headlines screamed words like unthinkable and Caitlin Clark attacked mid-game. This wasn't just a sports story anymore. It became a global flashpoint about safety, responsibility, and the dark side of fandom. Every corner of the basketball world paused. Analysts dissected replays frame by frame. Psychologists weighed in on the trauma of being attacked in plain sight. Leagues faced hard questions. How did this even happen? And what must be done to ensure it never happens again? The ripple effects were instant, pushing conversations about players' safety and fan conduct into urgent, uncomfortable territory. Clark, once the symbol of untouchable brilliance, was now proof of how even icons can be vulnerable. And as the dust settled, one haunting question kept resurfacing. If this could happen to Caitlin Clark, who's really safe out there. The game that started in triumph ended in tragedy, a reminder of how thin the line is between glory and danger. Basketball's brightest star had been brought to her knees, and fans across the world were left reeling. But what if this wasn't the whole story? What if the attack was only the visible scar of battles she'd been fighting in silence? Let's step away from the court and enter a hidden space. Her sanctuary, her 6x8 locker at the Indiana Fever facility. Behind that plain metal door lived the real Caitlin Clark. It wasn't just storage, it was her safe haven. Inside, walls held the weight of her journey, the joy of breaking records, the exhaustion of endless drills, the crushing pressure of carrying a league's hopes. Her journals, thick with handwritten notes, captured both strategy and self-doubt. Motivational quotes, affirmations, and carefully placed tokens of resilience revealed rituals that kept her locked in, steady, unshaken before the lights. But now, that sacred corner turned into something else. The emotional epicenter of a nightmare that changed everything. And from here, the story takes a darker, more personal turn. After those high-pressure nights, Caitlin would retreat to her locker, a small space packed with meaning. Stacks of letters from young fans overflowed with hope and admiration, constant reminders of the weight she carried as a role model. To outsiders, these were just possessions. But in truth, every piece was part of a carefully built system she relied on to survive the unrelenting glare of the WNBA. Even veteran staff, people who'd worked with legends, found themselves stunned by the depth of detail hidden in this one corner. Workout charts and recovery logs spoke to her ruthless preparation. Family keepsakes revealed the roots that kept her human amid soaring fame. Spiritual notes and self-growth materials proved she wasn't just building muscle and skill. She was building balance. This tiny locker mapped out her inner world, a mirror of both her discipline and her fragility. What made it extraordinary wasn't the objects themselves, but the way they told a single story: resilience, sacrifice, and the invisible load of life under constant scrutiny. It was more than a storage unit. It was proof of how hard she fought to protect her identity, her mind, and her relationships outside basketball. Every journal entry, every keepsake, every fan note acted as an anchor. Small reminders of purpose in the middle of a storm most could never imagine. But the night of the shocking incident, that fragile balance shattered. The locker, once a private sanctuary, suddenly became a symbol, exposing just how much Clark had built to hold herself together. And in that moment, it became clear to everyone, behind the dazzling plays and the endless praise stood a young woman carrying a pressure no box score could ever capture. Her locker was no longer just a corner of a room. It was a window into her soul, showing that greatness is fueled not just by talent, but by invisible rituals and relentless emotional strength. Every single item whispered the battles she fought alone. But now comes the real question. What happens when even a superstar's systems aren't enough? Could this attack be more than just a freak accident? Could it be the crack that reveals the hidden toll of fame itself? Because Caitlin Clark was more than a prodigy. She was a force, a trailblazer whose every step on the court inspired millions of girls to believe in something bigger. Each record, each highlight, each impossible shot pushed her further into legend. To fans, she looked untouchable, unstoppable, a player born to rewrite history before others had even found their footing. But that flying object reminded the world of a truth nobody wanted to face. No one, not even the brightest star, is safe from vulnerability. Behind the headlines and highlight reels was a human being capable of fear, shock, and pain like anyone else. The incident stripped away the armor, revealing the fragile side of invincibility. Clark's rise had never been an accident. It was built on hours of invisible work, mental systems, emotional tools, and private rituals that steeled her against the suffocating pressure of fame. Journals captured her inner storms. Affirmations carved into paper gave her confidence when doubt crept in. Fan letters reminded her of the purpose beyond the points and trophies. These weren't hobbies, they were lifelines. And when that moment of chaos struck, the entire basketball world was forced to confront something it often ignores: the unbearable cost of being constantly watched, judged, and expected to perform without fail. The truth is stark. Fame doesn't shield you from danger. Records don't erase vulnerability. Success doesn't cancel fear. Caitlin's ordeal was a brutal wake-up call, not just for her, but for every fan, every league, every official who had forgotten the human beating heart beneath the jersey. The shocking incident didn't just spark outrage. It forced the sports world to pause. Suddenly, conversations weren't only about performance, trophies, or stats. They shifted to the invisible support systems athletes desperately need, the mental and emotional safety nets often ignored. Caitlin's ordeal exposed a truth that shook even her most loyal fans. Heroes, no matter how resilient or courageous, are still human. They need care, they need compassion, and they need protection for more than just their bodies. This wasn't just a game disrupted. It became a mirror for the entire industry. Behind every superstar's shine is a person whose heart and mind deserve safeguarding. And then came the twist no one saw coming. Hours after that terrifying moment, Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's brightest rookie, a player at the height of her rise, announced her retirement. Yes, retirement. Not months later, not at season's end. Instantly, the news hit like an earthquake. Fans were left gasping, analysts scrambling, and her teammates in disbelief. She wasn't walking away because of a torn ligament or poor form. She was walking away to protect her peace, her safety, her mental health. The decision sent shockwaves across the league, raising one haunting question. How could a star so young, so dominant, so transformative, be forced to leave at the very peak of her powers? It wasn't just an exit, it was a statement. A statement that fame doesn't erase fear, that the spotlight doesn't shield athletes from the shadows. Caitlin's retirement wasn't weakness. It was courage in its purest form, and it left the world unsettled. Stadiums, once thought sacred, suddenly felt fragile, unsafe. Fans and league officials had to confront a painful reality. The arenas meant for dreams could just as easily become scenes of nightmares. The attack that drove Clark's decision uncovered glaring cracks in security, forcing urgent debates about player protection in an era where visibility has no limits. But this wasn't only about safety. It was about pressure. For years, Clark had carried more than a team. She carried the hopes of millions. Young girls who saw themselves in her, fans who believed she could change the game forever. And she did. Yet the decision to step away reminded everyone of something uncomfortable. Behind the stats and records is a human being. And no championship, no viral highlight, no wall of accolades is worth losing your sense of safety. Her choice opened a national dialogue, not just about basketball, but about how athletes live under constant strain. It pushed fans and organizations alike to reflect. What do we owe the people who give us these unforgettable moments of magic? Clark's retirement proved something powerful. That sometimes the bravest thing a superstar can do is not push forward, but stop, to reclaim themselves, to choose humanity over spectacle. Her announcement spread beyond sports pages. It touched conversations on mental health, on player safety, on the real cost of being constantly visible in a digital world. And for many, it was a revelation. The strongest act of courage isn't always hitting the game winner. Sometimes it's walking away. Caitlin Clark's decision left fans stunned, league shaken, and commentators grasping for answers. But the bigger question now isn't about her retirement. It's about her legacy, because despite stepping away, her impact refuses to fade. So what will define Caitlin Clark in the years to come? The sudden retirement, or the revolution she sparked before her career even reached its peak? Now let's travel back to the very beginning, when a rookie in number 22 stormed into the WNBA and rewrote everything we thought we knew. Caitlin Clark gave the Indiana Fever something they hadn't felt in years: new life. Through her unmatched skill and relentless drive, she dragged the franchise back into the playoffs by 2024. She became the beating heart of a team desperate for hope, radiating energy that spilled far beyond the hardwood. Her presence didn't just inspire players. It reignited fans, reshaped the culture, and transformed the entire organization. Off the court, the ripple effects were even greater. Ticket sales didn't rise, they exploded, soaring 400% as arenas filled night after night. Broadcasts drew over 1 million viewers, and on the most electrifying evenings, more than 2 million tuned in. Suddenly, the WNBA was no longer niche. It was a spectacle, a cultural storm. Clark didn't just elevate a roster. She elevated the league. Sponsors followed fast, but these weren't the usual low-profile deals. These were major global brands rushing to tie themselves to her star power. In one season, she achieved what decades of marketing had failed to do. She made the WNBA impossible to ignore. Games turned into national events. Players became household names. And Caitlin's rookie year? It wasn't just successful. It was historic. Proof that one extraordinary athlete could shift the destiny of a franchise, ignite a league, and capture the imagination of an entire nation. Every bucket, every assist, every fearless rebound carved her name into history. 2024 wasn't just her debut. It was the year the WNBA changed forever. But then everything collapsed. Her meteoric rise collided with a shocking retirement. The sports world froze, asking the same question. How could someone so young, so unstoppable, step away at her peak? Legacy amidst tragedy. Even in the shadow of her sudden exit, Caitlin Clark's story refuses to fade. Her journey, from phenom rookie to reluctant retiree, now lives on in the small artifacts she left behind. Her locker became a time capsule. Journals filled with private thoughts, stacks of fan letters, meticulously planned workouts, and keepsakes from a life racing at full speed. Each object whispered of discipline, resilience, and grounding. Proof of an athlete who wasn't just talented, but prepared for every storm. The shocking incident that drove her to retire wasn't just a headline. It was a national reckoning. fans, and experts suddenly confronted realities often hidden behind the bright lights. Relentless scrutiny, crushing expectations, and, at times, genuine danger. Caitlyn's ordeal revealed what we rarely admit, that even the most celebrated stars are vulnerable, human, and deserving of protection. Her story became a catalyst for tough conversations about athlete safety, mental health, and the invisible weight of fame. Because greatness isn't only about stats. Clark's single season taught us that true excellence means foresight in the face of risk, resilience under unbearable pressure, and courage to prioritize self-preservation over trophies. Her journals mapped her inner strategies. Her letters showed the lives she touched. Her training notes reflected the endless preparation that made her dominance look effortless. Now, with her retirement sealed, the league is left honoring her impact while wrestling with the lessons it carries. Those items in her locker, silent, ordinary things, are now symbols. They celebrate her brilliance, but also warn of the costs. Teams, leagues, and fans must finally recognize the unseen battles and protect players before it's too late. Caitlin Clark's legacy isn't just about the shots she hit or the records she shattered. It's about balance between talent and preparation, spotlight and solitude, triumph and safety. Even as she steps away, her story pushes us to rethink how we treat our heroes. Her journey proves greatness isn't just about how high you climb, but about the courage to step back when the climb becomes too dangerous. So, what do you think of Caitlin's shocking retirement after that unforgettable moment on court? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your voice in this story.